Before my husband had his stroke in 2023, I had no idea what a caregiver was. But now that I've been on this caregiving journey for the past year and a half, I realize that the dictionary definition of a caregiver, a person who provides care to a loved one who cannot care for themselves, is simply inadequate. Because what is a caregiver? A caregiver is an advocate, a schedule planner, a transportation person, a cook, grocery shopper, housekeeper, errand runner. A caregiver is a personal care provider, a therapist, physical, occupational, speech language, as well as recreational and massage therapist. A caregiver is a social worker, a pharmacist, a bookkeeper, an accountant, a counselor, and a researcher. And dare I say it, a caregiver is an expert in the health condition of your loved one, whether or not you have a medical degree. This list is not complete. It goes on and on because there is so much that a caregiver deals with on a daily basis. On top of this, if you're like myself, you may have kids who live at home. You may work full-time or part-time outside of the home as well. So you can imagine how caregiver burnout and stress can have a direct impact on the emotional, physical well-being of a caregiver. I came across a recent article that was published in Psychology Today in February of 2025. It's called "Stresses of Caregiving Affect Physical and Mental Health." I'm going to share the key takeaways of this article with you. It says that caregivers face immense stress, but support and therapy can help. Over 7.5 million Canadians provide unpaid care, often facing stress, burnout, and isolation. Virtual supports offer accessible relief, yet many caregivers remain unaware of these resources. Raising awareness of caregiver support services is crucial as Canada's aging population grows rapidly. You may have heard the recent news about actor Hackman and his wife Betsy and their tragic deaths. Now, if I had heard this story before I became a caregiver myself, I think I would have simply thought, wow, that's so sad. What a sad and tragic way to die. But now that I'm a caregiver myself, this story, it hits different. It hits hard because this is the nightmare of every caregiver out there. At one point or another on their journey, there is that fear. What if something happens to me first? What if I am not here to take care of my loved one? What will happen to them? And this story, as tragic as it is, it cannot end here. I'm hoping that it will raise awareness about caregiver life and it will generate discussion. Right now in Canada, 1 in 4 Canadians are caregivers. So this discussion is long overdue. We need to understand better what a caregiver does, what they go through on a daily basis, and how we can better support them. In this age of technology and information, and sometimes too much information at our fingertips, I find it unacceptable that people are not aware of the resources and the support that is widely available to them. So we need to do a better job about raising awareness. Now, let me tell you how I got plugged in and received the support when I needed it the most. About a week after my husband was discharged from the inpatient rehab hospital, I received a phone call from a lady named Nadia. She's the after-stroke coordinator for March of Dimes Canada. To be honest, I had no idea what March of Dimes was. I had never even heard of them before. I didn't know how she got my name, how she got my number, and I honestly didn't know why she was calling me. But I am so thankful, so glad that I answered that call, that I engaged in conversation, and I agreed to meet her on Zoom for a virtual meeting. Because from that point on until now, She is my go-to person. She is my lifeline. She is the one who has walked me through step by step from the moment we left the hospital until now. My after stroke coordinator gave me the specific help that I needed at that time. And I desperately needed to talk to a fellow caregiver of a stroke survivor. I needed to know that I'm not the only one going through this. And I needed to talk to a real person, not just on YouTube or Instagram or social media. I needed to speak to a real live human being. And so my stroke coordinator, she got me connected with another caregiver who was a couple of years into this journey. So they have these programs where they pair someone who's new on the journey with someone who is a little bit further into the journey, just for some, conversation and mentorship and just some one-on-one support. And then one day I said to her, my husband has aphasia, which is a communication disability from his stroke, and his first language is Korean, and his Korean is starting to recover a little bit faster than his English. It would be great if he can communicate with someone in Korean. And I didn't know anyone. We really didn't know any Korean speaking stroke survivor with aphasia. But Nadia did, and she got us connected with this person, and we had a Zoom call, and it just gave us so much hope for, one day my his ability to communicate, it can and it will get up to a better level than it is right now. So that conversation, I remember it was very early on, and I was crying a lot during and even after the conversation because it gave me so much hope. And then later on, I said to my Nadia, is there anyone out there, any stroke survivor with aphasia who has been able to successfully go back to work? Because my husband loved his work and he desperately wanted to go back. But I couldn't find anyone who had successfully gone back to work. But my Nadia did. She got me connected with another lady who had aphasia, or who has aphasia, and was able to go back to work part-time. And we had, I think it was about an hour and a half conversation with her. Again, it was so enlightening and so hopeful, and it really spoke to me. There were so many other conversations and so many other people that she got me connected with to have these one-on-one conversations with. And it did take a lot of time, and it did take a lot out of me, but it was so worth it. She's also the one who introduced us to the Korean Aphasia group. The Korean Aphasia group that's provided by Purdue University in Indiana. And it's a virtual group, but still to this day, my husband is still a part of that group. He actually had a session with them just a couple of days ago. And she also got me connected with an online support group, and it's called Care Partners for Stroke Survivors. And I started this group very early on, just 2 months into our stroke. And at that time, it was chaotic and it was messy, and I didn't feel like I could spare an hour. I felt like, I can't even spare a minute for myself. How could I spare an hour of my day or my week talking to a bunch of strangers on Zoom? And I didn't think that this would be a good fit, or I didn't think it would be helpful. But you know what? Don't knock it until you try it and give it an honest, sufficient, effort into seeing if this would be the right fit for you. So I remember I logged on and feeling, let's just see how it goes. Since that day until now, for a year and a half, I haven't missed a single session. So these are care partners of stroke survivors all across Canada. We meet on Zoom for about an hour. We meet twice a month. And this meeting and this support group is so critical And it's such an important part of my personal recovery and healing and caregiver life and management that I block it off in my calendar. It's 5 o'clock here in Vancouver. I'm still at work. So on those Wednesdays, I block it off in my work calendar. And no matter what, that time from 5 to 6 on Wednesday is dedicated for my support group. So what do? I log in from my work when I'm in my office. What I do is I go in an hour earlier to work on that day because I'm taking an hour off. Now, it's not, sometimes we think that Zoom meetings are so easy. All you need to do is just push the button. But it's so much more than that, because you need to be really intentional about setting aside the time to do it. And for me, it's having to block off time at work and making sure that I have no other appointments between 5 and 6 besides my support group. But let me tell you something about my support group. And I know that some of the members of our support group watch this channel. I would not be here today, and I would not have come this far on this journey if it wasn't for my support group. Our leader for this support group is so wise and so sensitive to the feelings of the members in the group that she never pushes. She just encourages, and she opens up a space for all of the people in the meeting to share and to check in and to just express what they're thinking or feeling or how their week has been. But if you are not feeling comfortable to share, then that is totally okay too. But I feel that with support groups and things like this, you will get out of it what you put into it. But this group of caregivers, they have been, I don't even know them. All we know is we know each other's names. We know, little bits and pieces of their story. We know where in Canada we all live. But beyond that, we don't know any personal information about one another. But the way that we connect and dive in and just really, there is a level of understanding within this group of caregivers that I will never get with anyone else, because unless you have been in my shoes, unless you have walked this path, no matter how hard you try to understand, you will not. But this group, they get me and they get it. So no matter what I say, I know that there's no judgment. There's no shame, there's no embarrassment, because I can say whatever I want to say and they all get it. Why? Because they have experienced it or they are currently experiencing themselves. So some of the meetings are, more lighthearted. We share stories of success. We share stories of what's working for our stroke survivors, what's not working. We share stories of, just our medical journey, our healing journey. And sometimes we go real deep and we talk about the hard stuff, the stuff that it's not, that may be difficult to bring up with other people who may not get it because it might make them uncomfortable. We talk about mental health, we talk about trauma, PTSD, we talk about triggers. It was actually from the support group that I had learned last year that seizures are quite common with stroke survivors. I had no idea. None of the doctors or therapists told me that, but I learned that from this group. So when 3 weeks ago my husband had a seizure, of course I was shocked and I was surprised, but I remembered that there were people in my support group who had experienced this. So this group was the first group of people I thought about when I was going through this. I need to reach out to them. I need to talk about this and share and just, learn from the other people in the group. So if you, again, I cannot stress enough, if you are a stroke survivor, if you are a caregiver, you need support. And if you've got that support with family and friends and loved ones and your neighbors and your community, that is fantastic. I'm not trying to negate that. That is absolutely essential. But to take your healing and to take your recovery to the next level, you need specific targeted support from people who really understand, from people who have walked this journey and are currently walking this journey. Now, if support groups, whether it's virtual or in person, if that's not your thing, there are other support groups such as Facebook support groups. Now, I joined one. This is for, for some reason, I am drawing a blank on the actual name of the support group, but I will find it and I will list it below in the description. But this is for care partners of stroke survivors, specifically with aphasia. There are thousands of people in this group, and it's a very helpful and very respectful group. And people are in there to encourage one another and to support one another through this. So if someone, puts up a post, then people will comment on that. And at the beginning, when I joined this group, I was afraid that it would be a time suck for me, that it would just, I would just spend hours and hours just mindlessly scrolling on Facebook. But it really isn't like that. It is intentional, so it's very purposeful, it's encouraging, and I find that the people in the group are so respectful and genuinely kind and wanting to encourage and help one another. So just reading people's comments and reading people's posts, that has really encouraged me. And as well, I started to put some posts up there myself and to respond to other people's posts and to comment. And like I said before, you get out of something what you put into it. So all that to say, there is so much support out there. It's so heartbreaking to hear that a lot of caregivers are unaware of these supports. So I will try to link as much as I can in the description below. But if you're a caregiver, you can't do this alone. You really shouldn't even try to do this alone, not when we have so much available out there. So, they say it takes a village, right? So I hope you find your village. I hope you get plugged in, and I hope that you will receive a lot of support and hope and love from your village of support. Thank you.